and welcome to the panel, where we take a look at graphic novels and talk about their story, art, and everything in between. On this episode, we're heading into the world created by the wildly popular Critical Role web series and meeting the adventures of Vox Machina. Well, before they become the Vox Machina team. So let's get started. Joining me today, we have the incredibly talented cosplayer and creator, Bindi Smalls.
Hi, how you guys doing?
And we also have D&D enthusiast and voice actor, Sean Mongold.
Hello.
Hello. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Doing great.
Everyone's holiday prep going?
It's going.
Yeah.
We're getting close. Anybody got some fun plans going on? I know we're all still kind of in quarantine, but anyone doing anything fun?
No. I mean, very light plans. A lot of families going other places. We're just staying at the house. You know, we did a Thanksgiving thing. But yeah, nothing too big coming up. I mean, MagFest is coming up, so just getting ready for that. That's going to be like our first convention, so it's going to be a lot of people. So we're just kind of like, ooh,
Yeah.
You don't know what to expect.
I know that feeling, especially MagFest.
Yes, I'm going to see my family for the first time in so long. After all this, I'm really excited about that. Yeah.
Oh yay! I know it's been so long since any of us have seen people. I feel like, so.
Yes.
It's good to see you guys.
Yeah.
So now, before we get into this, Sean, I know you are really big into D&D. Give us a little bit about like your background with like what you know about D&D and about Critical Role, because you were super excited when I asked you about this.
Dog, yes. So, I mean, I've been into D&D for a couple years now, and it's just like it's kind of one of those things that made me realize that I'm a creative person. You know, my uncle used to do it years and years ago, and I was just like, no, I'm not gonna do that. You know, I'm not gonna role play. What's role play? You know, and then I had a couple friends kind of like bring it up to me, and it kind of made me delve into like this creative aspect. And we got to go around and meet all these people, Maki guests, and we got to meet all these voiceover artists, and it just became like this weird realm where I was like, man, I get to improv, play with voices. And it kind of like started me into voice acting and things of that nature. And it's just such a cool thing. And Critical Role is obviously like this huge thing now, and it never was. It was a couple, it was a couple things where it was a D&D show, and they were just friends, voiceover artists obviously, but they were friends just having fun. I mean, they still have fun, but yeah, it's I was really excited when you asked me about this. Like, I hadn't read the Origins book, now I have, but yeah, it's just keeping up with all the campaigns, and campaign 1 is by far my favorite. I don't know how to explain it either. And I don't know if it was because it was like the first like big campaign that I had watched, or what it was about it. But like there was a strong emotional tie to these characters from campaign 1. And it's so unique, and I love it so much.
So awesome. I'm excited to have you here. And Bindi, you are relatively newer to D&D and Critical Role, but you were so into it.
Yes.
I know you got really excited as well. Give us a little bit about your background into the world of Critical Role and you.
Sure. So I had watched an episode of the first campaign live many years ago. And my friends were very into it and were starting to try to get me into it, but I could never commit at the time to the schedule, to the live schedule. So I've heard about just about every character and every plot that's happened because my friends are very into it, and they give me like a synopsis on some things. But this is the first time I've been able to like actually watch it, like sit down, and they have so many different ways to access it now instead of just catching the live broadcasts or the VODs. there's you can just listen to it on Spotify. You can watch it on YouTube. It's so accessible now. There's so many ways to get to it. So I like to watch it now while I'm crafting. And I like fell hook, line, and sinker for it. They do such a good job. They're so talented at improv, at voice acting, and like making a space. And it's so fun. And it's something that I've been flirting with getting into D&D for years. And now I'm just like really, really excited to delve into this world and find out more about it. And like Sean said, it's so creative and it's so organic. It grows, it evolves, and the whole group grows together. And I think that's really, really cool.
See, I'm with you on that one. Like the whole scheduling thing is really hard for me. Like that's why I haven't like really been able to get into it. But after reading this, I'm kind of like, okay, maybe I want to like go on and like this got me. So I think one way or another, we all got into it.
Right.
I mean, I've never actually myself caught like a live taping or like a live like Twitch stream on Thursdays. It's like because it's West Coast, I'm on the East Coast,
right. Yeah,
and like it goes so late.
It goes
it's
really
like
late.
3, 4, 5 hour games. So it's like I'm always either watching the VOD on Twitch, that I subscribe to, or I'm driving and I'm listening to it, on the podcast on one of the streaming applications. And like that's how I caught up because I started watching it. I think it was right when campaign 2 started. So I literally had to like go through all of campaign 1 and I was just like at work listening to it. And, and it's something left me desired, because you can't really see them. And there is a different aspect of watching them play versus hearing them play. Cause it took me a long time to get the voices to the people when I first got into it, like the first like 15 episodes, 10 episodes. So, but yeah, it was a journey, and yeah, I'm very glad that more people have access to it.
All right. Well, we got a comment from Anthony White saying hi. Hi, Anthony.
Hello.
And Jay Ward saying hi as well. David, so many highs. Yay.
Hi,
David. All right, let's start deep diving into the story. Let me give you guys a little bit of the background. So Vox Machina Origins Series 1, which is 1 through 6 of the comics, was written by Critical Role creator Matthew Mercer and Matthew Colville, and features interior art by Olivia Sampson and coloring and lettering by Chris Northrup. The first 6 issues were digitally published in the fall of 2017, with a second set of 6 issues released afterwards, and a third released this past February. The comics act as a prequel story to the wildly popular D&D web series Critical Role, collecting the stories of the characters prior to the airing of the web series, when it was still a private game led by Dungeon Master Matt Mercer. So, What is everyone's initial thoughts going into this? Before you even started reading it, what were your initial thoughts? Let's start with Bindi.
Well, I was really excited to finally know the story about 3 characters because I've heard about them nonstop from my friends. It's Vex, Vax, and Percival. So I was really excited to finally like jump into it and see and hear their backstory and read about them. And yeah, my first impressions were fantastic, and I was just very excited to crack it open.
And what about you, Sean?
So many feelings. Like I said, like the emotional tie I had to these characters was ridiculous. Like I cried so many times through campaign 1, like just like not even having to watch and see someone cry, but just like hearing the emotion that they put. I mean, obviously they're voice actors, so they can convey that easier, but like I was so interested in it, and I was wondering what your 3 was going to be, Bindi, and I was just like waiting for it, and I was like, oh, okay, interesting, because like my 3 I was looking forward to was obviously Grog and Scanlan's connection,
yes,
because that's one of the like Travis and Sam's friendship relating to Scanlan and Grog was something I was really looking forward to see like. Were they a thing before the campaign started? Because obviously the Origins is before their campaign. And it's even, I think it's before the pre-stream, which is, when they were playing at their house before they were recording. So I was really interested in that. And also, fun little snippet, the foreword of this book was written by Gail Simone, which I also peeped right when I pulled it out of the box, I was like, oh, that is very, very interesting. I love Gail Simone. What an amazing human being. And it just shows you how vast the world of Critical Role has become now. Like everyone's watching. And it was just like really nice to read the foreword right there in the beginning of this whole entire graphic novel.
I will say my big thing was how weighty this book was.
It's a pick'em.
I got my copy and I was like, wow, this is crazy. But I mean, it does collect all of it. And now we're going to deep dive into it and get started on the story discussion. Matt Mercer started his career as a voice actor before serving as Dungeon Master for his web series Critical Role, which launched on Geek and Sundry in 2015. Fellow DM Matthew Colville wrote the series along with Mercer, and he's also the founder and head of writing and design at MCDM Productions. All right, let's deep dive into this story. All right, what did you think of the story? We're only going through 1 through 6. I know there's so much to deep dive into. Sean's like rocking over there. Let's go with Sean.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I want to see what Bendy thinks about it first.
Okay, let's go. Let's go, Bendy.
Well, going into this completely new, again, I don't really know a whole lot about these characters beforehand. I'm learning about it through the book alone, essentially. Basically, any scene with Scanlan is fantastic. As he is hilarious and breaks the fourth wall constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like this cool sort of element of self-awareness in a graphic novel that is just awesome and very different from the other characters. And yeah, other scenes that were notable to me was meeting Percy was a cool sort of, I did not expect this, and then it happened. And a later story element with Grog and his origins, and something that calls him back to a family member. I don't want to like spoil it, I guess, for people. But that was like mysterious and very cool and very exciting to see what was going to happen next, because I kind of did not have any expectations going into it. It was very surprising.
Oh,
What about
okay.
you,
Man, by the way, Scanlan.
Yes.
And this is
fantastic.
so true to Sam Riegel, and like just like everything that Scanlan does in campaign 1 is just, it's hilarious. Like he's such a ridiculous character, and he's so funny. He breaks the fourth wall. He breaks the ice. He's the typical bard, and he is just like right there, just from like the art, like capturing his mannerisms right here, like the faces. It's just like, like Sam Riegel's on the show making these faces, and it's just like I mean, we're going to talk about the art later, but no, the story, like, I'm trying to think what was my favorite part. Like, obviously, like the whole story in Stillben is great. Obviously, because I didn't know the story. Like, this is all new for me. Even though I know the whole story of Vox Machina, I don't remember the story. So it was really cool how they told the story. For anyone who plays D&D, and how they usually structure, a group together, this is very, very on par. Typically, sometimes more than likely, like a DM will introduce 2 characters, and they'll be doing something, and then they run into a third character. So when you get in the very beginning, you get Vex and Vax, the twins, and they're going around, they're on a mission trying to get gold, obviously. And a crazy shark thing comes out of nowhere, and they get, a squirrel starts waving at them, and it's Keyleth. And that is Marisha Ray's character, whereas Vex and Vax is Laura Bailey and Liam O'Brien. And it's just like how it all played together was just beautiful, man. And obviously the creators are DMs, and they inspired they did that on purpose. And I truly, truly love it. And then obviously as the chapters go on, they go into the city, and then you meet, Scanlan and Grog, and then you meet, you see Tiberius. I love Tiberius, and he's in, the first couple episodes of campaign 1. Some things happened with the person who played, Tiberius, and kind of moved away from Critical Role. So they kind of wrote the character off. But it was so nice to see him kind of drawn in this and seeing it, because like literally like all of his mannerisms, how he's like, good day, sir. Like he's like very elegant, and he's a dragonborn, and he's, I'm Tiberius. And it's just like, you kind of capture that. Like he has like the glasses and everything. And, like he's just such a character. I loved him, in the very beginning. Obviously dragons too, because dragons are cool. But so when I was watching campaign, I was like, oh cool, dragonborns, like this is dope. But yeah, the story, it was just so good. And I loved how they created it, how they started it, and just everything.
And now for you, you both like having, watched the show or listened to the show, and then now that you're reading this, how do you feel? Do you feel like they really captured the characters pretty accurately within the comic? Like Bindi.
I'd say so, yes. From everything I've known about these characters through other people, telling me, these are straight up very accurate. The mannerisms, like Sean mentioned, the postures, their stories, their voice lines, I guess, their lines in the comic seem extremely accurate. And I love sort of the development, the relationships between the characters, like Keyleth, for example, sort of becoming everyone's friend eventually, whether they were resistant to that at first or not, and things like that. It's cool to see those sort of interpersonal relationships that like tell the story later of how they became this awesome band of adventurers, but they had to develop those friendships first. And they kind of go through a lot of that here too.
Yeah,
What about you,
that
Sean?
yeah, no, they definitely hit on it. And like there's even like small little like Easter eggs in it too, which I love Easter eggs, and I loved catching some of them, like Keyleth and Vax's first interaction. Spoiler alert for people who haven't seen campaign 1, Vaxeldon and Keyleth are an item. And there's like a little flirty kind of bashful moment, I believe, when Keyleth first heals Vax, which that's a thing throughout campaign 1. Vax gets hurt a lot. And Keyleth is there to heal him. And so it was really cool seeing things like that. And then obviously seeing like the friendship between Grog and Scanlan. Like I could literally read 10 of these books of just Grog and Scanlan misadventures, just doing anything, even like exploring brothels. Like I would read that over and over and over. Like they are just they're so funny, and it's like, and it captures, because like, and the thing is, like, for everyone who doesn't know, Travis Willingham, who plays Grog, is this really, really big dude. And Sam Riegel's not a tiny dude, but he's smaller than Travis. And it's just like you see like this connection. And man, I don't know if I'm going too deep into it, but there is this moment in campaign 1 near the end where something really bad happens to Scanlan, and they have to do something to help him. And Grog, Travis character, does a limerick, which is what a bard does when they do a spell. They do like music. What Scanlan does, he always, like, if you see him saying like mean things at people in the comic, it's his cutting words, where he's trying to make someone lose focus and not get a spell or an attack off. And he does these little limericks. And so essentially Grog, Travis, creates a song, like a limerick, and it's based off of Hail to the Washington football team. Sam Riegel is a Washington sports fan, and Travis is a Dallas Cowboys fan. So it was just like really heart-wrenching. I was like, and it really made me cry. And like just seeing as their like relationship develop here, like even as Grog gets like kind of taken over, like what you're saying, Bendy, where he kind of gets drawn away from the group. That happens a lot. Grog is not a smart, wise person, and he fails checks all the time.
I see.
And he gets mind controlled, and he ends up attacking his friends.
I think that needs to be like a whole like spin-off, like Hangover style with them.
That would be amazing. Yes.
So
All
they
right.
actually, I'm sorry,
Oh,
one quick
no, go
thing.
ahead.
So what you just said with the Hangover, they kind of did that. It's called the Search for Grog, and it's on YouTube. It's a one shot that they did.
Ooh.
And at the very end of the whole entire thing, Grog found the deck of many things, which everyone in D&D knows as like these wild, cards, and like you don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be something crazy magical. And Grog ended up drawing a card, and it ended up sending his soul into like this crystal in a different, realm, being guarded by all these primordial beings. And it was like the last episode of the campaign. They're like, okay, we're just going to cut to where they save Grog and come back. And then what they did is they made it into like a one shot of where they actually had to go on the adventure to save Grog. And it was so good.
I'm definitely gonna have to check that one out after this.
Yeah.
All right. Now, before we move on to getting into the art, I'm gonna pull out this question. I know it's kind of lame, but what is your favorite part of the story? Was there like a favorite moment for you? Like mine was just starting off at the bat, was like the beginning with the baby. Like it was just within 3 pages, you're like, okay, this is where we're going with this. Like, I was not expecting any of that at all, and I was just like, oh, okay, crap.
Absolutely. It was quite a way to jump into the story. It's pretty intense.
So, like, for me, that was my, like, holy cow moment. But was there, like, a favorite moment for either of you within the first 6 issues? Let's go. Who should I pick on for video?
Sure, totally. I think my favorite moment, and as lame as it sounds, my favorite moment was when Vax joins back with the party. Vax, in some degrees, is taken away, and it kind of like builds a lot of tension because this person is alone, and obviously the party is stronger together. And this person is away also from their twin. So it was like a little nerve-wracking for me to like just worry about like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Are they going to see each other? Is this person going to die right now? When this explosion happens, and essentially Vax finds his way back to his party, who just so happens to be right next to them. It was beautiful and comedic kind of rejoining. And that was like a big wave of relief for me. And it set like the tone for a lot more other sort of like the party separates and comes back together pieces in the book. And I love those pieces because it feels like, yes, they're back together and they're whole again. And I like that a lot. That's my favorite part. It's kind of cheesy, but
No, I think that's great. What about you, Sean?
I love that part. I mean, I'm a person who has no siblings, so I've never had that connection. But they do a very, very good, in the show and in the book, of conveying that kind of like that sibling love, but they're also twins. So there's like this a whole other, I guess, atmosphere to it, like this whole other dimension to it. And also they kind of delve into off jump, like how similar they are, but also how different. Like both of them want to be, like noticed and known, and they kind of both want to be good people. I mean, Vex is more like, we need money, and Vax is just like, we needed to be like, do the good for the village, so it's really good that they kind of connect that. So I loved when he was taken away and they kind of brought back, and it was just such a weird moment where a dude blew a hole in the ship and Vax dove out, and they're like, oh, and that was really heart-wrenching. But like, I guess one of my favorite scenes would probably be shortly after that one. It was when I think Tiberius and Keyleth, the magic users, were trying to figure out how to get on the ship or it was right before. I think it was right before or after. I can't remember. They were trying to get on the ship to figure out who stole Vax after they had already gotten him back. And Tiberius is like, well, I can do that. I can snuff out the flames and do this and blah, blah, blah. And it's really reminiscent of D&D, right? Because when you're playing D&D, you have a group of people and you try to strategize. It's like, well, I can do this. I have this spell and I can do this and maybe I can do this. So it's like the magic users kind of like having this sidebar, like, and I could just see it happening at the table where, they're like, oh, I can do this. And then, well, actually, I can't do that. I can make fire, but I can't put it out. And then all of a sudden in the background, you see Grog just like no words, like just walking over. And that's Grog's character. He doesn't like to talk. He can't cast magic. He's a barbarian. He's going to swing his axe and kill things. So like in the background, you see him like fighting the guards that they're like trying to plan, how can we get through them, or how can we bypass them or trick them off the boat. And Grog's just in there like swinging it, and he goes for the big bull guy, and it becomes like a big fight, and then they end up getting thrown in the water. And then they go into the boat without Grog, which was a mistake. But Grog comes back and saves the day, which is what happens a lot. Right there with a starfish on his head and everything. And literally, like, Grog is like, I feel like Grog is everyone's first character in D&D, because you want to be the strong brute, or every guy's character, because they want to be the strong brute, like the muscly man, but Travis just plays Grog so well. And it's just like he never wants to be smart. He's fine with not knowing anything. He's like, I'm Grog Strongjaw, and I'm ready to bash your face in. And it's just so funny.
I do have to say my second favorite scene is like right after the scene you mentioned, where they are trying to dispel a big magic like aura with
it's the glyph on the floor. It's the
ritual glyph.
Yeah, there it is.
I laughed out loud at that scene when I read it. I was like, oh my god, of course. Why not?
It's so funny. Yes. I love it. Because Tiberius was just like, we need something that's going to counteract the poison, and they're like, well, it's like a less form of venom or poison. And then I think it was Scanlan who just
it was Scanlan. He's like,
yeah. And that's true to Scanlan.
I really love how they bring in like the D&D details into things, like, because there is like in D&D games there is that like lull time where when you're trying to figure out like what spell you're gonna use, who's gonna do what. I used to play with a group, and like one of the girls that we played with like had mild narcolepsy, so like during those times she would like kind of fall asleep, and then we would wake her up once we figured out what we were gonna do. So there's those like downtime moments where everyone's just kind of like figuring stuff out, and I like how they put that into here. So it really does have that like D&D game feel while being a comic and a story, and it's just kind of fun.
Well, they also do, which I think is a cool little tab, is they draw in certain panels, and I believe we showed it earlier, where it's the dungeon squares.
Yeah, the
playmat. Yeah, it's like a little playmat, and you can kind of see where the characters are, like Vexalia, Vex. The S right there is a secret door. Then A1, A2 are the baddies. Like, I really liked how they did that, because this is like a lot of D&D play at people's life right here. And I love that when everyone was meeting up together for like almost like the first time, like Vex and Vax are coming through like the sewers, I think it was, and Grog and Scanlan are already in there, and they kind of like collide, and it's really cool that they show it that way. It was all very meticulously thought out, and I really, really appreciated those details.
And speaking of those D&D squares, let's get into talking about the art, because it's so hard to keep them separated. So let's dive into the artwork. Artist Olivia Sampson provided the interior art for the series. The artist is from the Faroe Islands in Denmark, and I believe this is her first time illustrating a comic. So very impressed with the fact that like beautiful artwork, absolutely beautiful artwork. This is totally my style. What about for you guys? What did you guys think overall of like the artwork style in terms of being for Critical Role? Let's go Sean this time.
Me? All right. I loved it. I would have never known this was their first time doing animation for a graphic novel or a comic. Like everything was just like the level of detail was there, like like we already talked about the mannerisms. Like there's a way you have to like draw those mannerisms, those smirks, that level of detail. And this is exactly up my alley for as far as artwork. And I think it really, really translates well over into the realm of D&D. Obviously there's some background characters that have less detail, but like, you can kind of guess who they are because of, cloaks or like, uniforms and things of that nature. But like, I really liked how things are structured. I liked how like the panels were laid out too. It was a little different. And I really enjoyed, how like they inserted certain panels, like the horizontal panels within an overarching like full panel page, and it was just really really interesting. I loved like the shadow work, the shade work. I mean, obviously when you come in a D&D realm, like you're going to have like this weird level of detail. You have magic, you have blood, you have gore, you have so many things to work with. It's not your basic superhero comic book. Like there's fight, look at that, like you have tigers, you have animals, you have people, you have arrows, you have brickwork, you have panels inside of a full page panel. Like there's just so much detail there, and like you have to appreciate that. Like it's just it's so beautiful looking.
What about you, Bindi?
I agree with that a lot. To add to that, I like how they portrayed many different fights going on at the same time, because in this book and with D&D parties, there is no main character. They're all the main character. So they would have to switch viewpoints during the fight constantly to sort of give you a good idea of what's going on to all of these different characters, what are their actions during this time, because they might not all be focused on the same thing. They might be addressing other parts, like different parts of the same fight. So I loved that. I loved how expressive they were. And I noticed in the back, in the section that goes over the artwork and notes about the artwork, the artist changed a lot of their designs to make them more expressive, to show a lot more of these like emotions that happen during the story and things like, yeah, here's a great example of one of those. And I thought that was a really cool move to take for a story that isn't like, not everyone is stoic, and even the stoic characters still show a ton of emotion on their face, even if they're saying nothing. But I liked that a lot. I enjoyed that. Yeah, here. Great. This is perfect. Like Vex being like relatively stoic, but having moments of kind of breaking that part of her personality. There, I think there's a line where she says like, "And do you think I'm the serious one?" or something like that.
Right.
And she has a great expression on her face when she's saying that.
Yeah. And I never even put that. I never even thought about that until now. What you're talking about, and all the different fight scenes going on, and like how quickly in the graphic novel it changed different people's perspectives. But like that's very true to D&D with initiative orders, and I didn't pick that up until you just said it. So wow, okay, now I see it in a different light. That's really interesting. I really like that.
Yeah, so, I like how they did everything on there. Like go ahead, Sean.
Oh no, I was just curious. So I mean, was this just one artist, or was it like a team, like a background artist?
So it was one artist, and then you had the colorist. So I think that's where it played out a lot too, is because the colors really supported everything. I don't think they could have gotten away with a different style, even with the colors. Like I think it worked really well together, because the characters have so much personality that varies so much. You have like these very serious characters, you have your funny characters, and I think if you had something like a harsh artwork, like something like Preacher, where it's very like linear and lined, I think it would take away from the aspect of some of the characters and their personalities. Whereas this, it's like everything's so vibrant and colorful, like you would see in a DVD like book or whatnot. And I think it really does lend to this having that D&D feel. It goes with the story. Yeah, that was a great moment.
And that's what Sam does. That's what he did. He did ridiculous things. Like Thunderstruck.
Yeah, there's a few songs that also, or limericks, I should say, that made me laugh out loud. My husband was like, "Are you okay?" I'm fine. This is hilarious.
That's what he did, man. It's like for as serious as this whole story in campaign 1 is, and like I watch a bunch of different like D&D shows and D&D podcasts I listen to, and a lot of them are just funny, just for funny's sake. Like they're just waiting for that time to say something funny, or they're going back and forth off each other, and a lot of it's also pre-recorded and cut down, whereas this is all live. So that's why you have these 3-4 hour shows. But like there's a big story behind every single campaign, but they still find these ways to kind of muscle in this humor. Like there's this funny, these inside jokes, like these jokes that they know when they say oh, I'm gonna make my way, they go, make my way. like making my way downtown, like, and like that's just like their thing, and it's like it's so funny because you become a part of their community. It almost feels like you're a part of the story with them, and that's what is so endearing about Critical Role.
I also, in that previous frame they just showed, notice that when Scanlan's going into a fight, he'll say something like sort of mean to the character. And I think isn't that like a spell in D&D?
Yeah,
like,
that's cutting words.
Yes, there you go. Perfect. And that's like
Yeah.
just another way in which they tied in like very specific D&D things into into the story, and I really liked that, because without that it would have been a little bit lost. But there's little reminders just sprinkled throughout, just to keep reminding you that this is a campaign.
Yeah. And like he does this inspiration with limericks,
right?
So when he gives people an extra like D6 to roll, he'll say something like a fun little limerick, and he had one for every single character. And I think they do one for Grog, like during the boat scene, where he's like, "You're my inspiration." And it's just it was fun seeing that. Like I could literally like imagine their voices in my head as I was reading. It was really fun.
Now, is there a particular moment in the story where the art really stood out to you? Is there like an art moment that just is sticking with you, just like that baby?
This one is one of my favorites. I saved it in the book because I was going to talk about it. This is one of my favorites, and it's like right in the beginning. I was like, oh my god, that's so adorable. And this is something Keyleth is imagining in her head as she and Vex like establish a very the basics of a growing friendship. And all of a sudden Keyleth was like, yay. And this is when Trinket liked Vex, I believe. Or no, other way around. I'm sorry. Licked Keyleth. Yes. And she was like, oh, Trinket likes you, we'll get along. And Keyleth was like, yeah, oh my god. Right. It was so cute. I love that art. But probably my favorite was the full page art of Grog and the nymph. I was like, oh my god, it's so beautiful. It's right before they go, the story progresses into his sort of origin, family ties sort of chapter, and that it's just this gorgeous beautiful nymph and Grog facing each other with this awesome environmental detail right behind them.
It's the Feywild.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that was really beautiful. And I love beauty, and I think one of the things that I loved about the artwork is, like we just said earlier, I think they showed it earlier, is just the level of detail. I think one of the fight scenes where everyone got together for the very first time and they're facing, I forgot her name, but it's the girl in the green from Stillben. There's like that one scene where she like pulls out the 6 arms. I think we already showed the preview, and she had like the hair, like the red details going through. Like it was just so beautiful, and there's so much chaos, right? Like look at the level of details in the grain right there. Like look at this, like just this, like everything. And it's just like, I don't even know if that's like a spell. I don't know if she dimension door or anything of that one. And it's cool to leave it up to your imagination, right? Because like there's so many spells in D&D. It's like I have no idea what this could have been as far as a spell, so it's like I'm using my imagination. Like, what does she do? Is she, like, is she revving something up? Is she powering up? Is she using dimension door? Is she just angered? Is she like a barbarian? Is she going into a rage? Like, what is she doing? So it's really fun to like how the artwork also leaves things up to imagination too sometimes, because like people don't necessarily, well, some spells you have to say things in order to cast them in the game, but I think they leave it up to interpretation when you're kind of like drawing it out like this. So it's like I really appreciated that, and I really love those details. But yes, the nymph and the Grog scene was very, very beautiful. And I would love to see like more of her artwork, like as they delve into the Feywild later on in campaign 1. I think that would be just gorgeous.
All right. And now that we've gotten a little bit of the story and the artwork, let's go jump into our final thoughts. All right. Let's get into what our guests thought after reading the series, after everything that they've learned. What are your final thoughts overall on the series? Let's start with Bindi.
Okay. My final thoughts after reading the series, the 1 and 2 collection. is that like I will probably continue to acquire more graphic novels for Critical Role based anything because I enjoyed reading this so much. And it's beautiful. Like I'll probably keep it on a coffee table or on like a center part of one of my bookcases so that you can see it because the cover alone is just gorgeous. But it's also something I'll probably pull out a lot to look at. Another thing that is more art related than story related, I really did like as well, all the attention to the costumes. It was noted in the back for the artist's notes, essentially, that a lot of the costumes that they're wearing are familiar costumes that have already experienced and you've already seen. These are new takes on them. So there's a lot of little details that are going to be a little bit newer and fresher to indicate like these characters are younger, like Grog doesn't have a beard, things like that, to sort of give you the feeling that they haven't progressed yet into the characters that you already know. But yeah, that was another great little tidbit that I loved.
Grog's beard is so funny. There's a whole thing with that too. It's great. But I guess me, right? Okay. So yeah, final thoughts. Huh, interesting. I loved it. I mean, so someone who literally the only podcasts I listen to are D&D podcasts at this point. I feel like everyone always has like a niche, like of a type of podcast they listen to. Like my wife listens to true crime podcasts, and like that's, I wouldn't say that's all she listens to, but with me, like D&D is like everything I listen to. So I'm always looking for more content to kind of consume. So just getting this book was new content, and I loved it so much, and it was just, like I said, I could imagine their voices in my head. I was reading the dialogue and like doing their voices because I just like playing with voices, being a voice actor, and things like that, or like creating voices for the new characters that aren't like the main core group, and it really put me back in the space like I was literally like watching campaign 1, and I really appreciate it. I'm definitely going to keep the book close to our coffee table, so that people can see it, because yes, the cover page front, the hardcover is just beautiful. And yeah, I appreciate everything that's done in that book. I had such a fun time reading it. I don't read, I don't read a lot. I listen to people talk. I talk and I listen to people talk, and I normally don't read, so this really got me into reading it.
Well, normally I ask for suggested reading, but because this is also a podcast and a web series and everything else, what would you guys suggest as far as if people like this or might want to get into this series, what else should they kind of look into? I know, Sean, you had mentioned some like really cool things that you had seen as far as like podcasts and web series. Let's start with you.
Yeah, so I mean, it really depends on what you like. I mean, there's so many different D&D podcasts out there now. So it depends on like what you're going for. If you're looking for story, I mean, Critical Role is where it's at. There's a bunch of things on YouTube. If Critical Role, like I think campaign 1 is like 130 episodes at 3-4 hours a piece. That can be very daunting and overwhelming at times. So there are different things that Matt does for I think one of the ones I watched was Force Gray. So Joe Manganiello was in it, and Deborah Ann Wool was in it, and they do like a 10-12 episode thing where they do, I think it was Curse of Strahd was the adventure book, I think it was, and it was pretty interesting to watch and just kind of get a feel for Matt's DM style. But like I said, it depends on what you like. If you like more funny, you can go to NADPOD or Dimension 20. Dimension 20 has like their own app, and they have a bunch of different campaigns that are 10 episodes, and you can go through. There's Arrivals of Waterdeep. There's so many. And it just depends on your preference. Like NADPOD is about hour and a half episodes. So if that's like your sweet spot for 90 minutes and you just want something goofy and funny with a little, there's still story there, and like there's people interacting and learning the game. So I would suggest some of those. And obviously, try to link up, at your local card store, if it's, safe, like link up at your card store or any groups and try to find a virtual group and find a DM and play for your first time, because it's, just jump in. People aren't, well, they shouldn't be assholes. They should help you learn to play and go, and just, do things like that. And it's, when I first played, I had a friend DM for me, and it wasn't virtual, it was in person, but like it was a learning experience, even though I'd like watched all campaign 1. But like there's still so much learning. You're not going to know all your spells, you're not going to know all your ability scores, you're not going to know everything. Everyone kind of like gets a little flustered a little bit because they're like, oh, I don't know everything about my character. You're going to be looking at it all the time. You're going to be looking at your spells, you're going to be looking at your ability checks and things of that nature, and your swords and your modifiers and things. So just have fun, just make a fun character, role play it, do your voices, just have fun with it.
I'm over here like taking notes because that's totally applicable to me as well. As far as getting into it, I like to get into Critical Role specifically. I break it up into smaller parts. So I'll listen to like an hour or watch an hour or whatever time I have to sort of listen to them. I'll just put that in and kind of continually, attack that episode throughout the week. But I do think there are recap. Matt Mercer does do some recap material on YouTube about episodes. So I have not watched them because I've been able to catch up to everything so far in campaign 3. But there are it seems like there's other materials you can find to sort of give you a synopsis of what has happened in case you don't have the 4 hours to spend. But as Sean said, there are so many shorter and smaller things you can get into, and other D&D based streams or podcasts that are cut down and edited, so it's a bit shorter. It's not all 4 hours and things like that. And as far as just specifically getting into Critical Role, things like this help a lot to have a graphic novel I could read at any given point, because I'm a very visual person. So having something that's only something I can listen to audibly, while I love it, I also need I need to look at stuff sometimes too. So I like looking at the graphic novel as well. So things like this, graphic novels, looking at reading the Wikipedia, looking at the art online, either the fan art or the official art, things like that help me sort of like get into the character, understand their characters, and just sort of make me fall more in love with the Critical Role. Yeah.
Now, do you feel like people needed to know about Critical Role before they got into it, or just they can start off here?
Into the graphic novel, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, you don't have to watch. I think they do a good job of like introducing the characters, and just you get who they are off jump. Like they introduce them very well. Like they're very striking characters. Like when you're watching it, it's kind of hard. Like Sam is a gnome, and it's like wait, which character are you? And like when you're reading the graphic novel, oh, that's the gnome. That's the gnome character. That's Scanlan. So yeah, no, you don't need anything. It was just really, it was really cool, like having the prior knowledge and coming back and seeing all these like nodes and little fun little tidbits that I'm realizing, but you do not need that information. Like you will still enjoy this like fresh new new eyes. You will enjoy this graphic novel, I believe. Like it's fun.
I agree with that completely. Yeah, I think you don't need all of the background knowledge. It makes it a little better because, like Sean said earlier, there are little Easter eggs and little bits here and there that might pull you in a little bit more. But you don't necessarily need that to enjoy this novel. I think you could enjoy it very well without having met any of them ever or listened to a Critical Role.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank you both for joining me on here and taking the time to read this tome that we sent you guys. Thank you so much, and for joining on the show. For those interested, where can people find you on the internet, and what do you guys have coming up that you want to tell people about? Let's start with Bindi.
Sure, you can find me on Instagram. I am Bindi Smalls. And on Facebook, where I am Bindi Cosplay, at Bindi Smalls, just like that. Also on Twitter. And you'll see me working on a costume, a big cosplay right now that I'll debut at Holiday Matsuri in Florida. So yeah, check it out. Follow me online.
Seen pictures of it. It looks so good.
Thank
It looks
you.
so good.
Thank you.
What about you, Sean?
Yes. So people can find me on Instagram and Twitter at smongoldvo. Voiceover official. No, it's not official. It's just smongoldvo. But yeah, so people can find me on there. As far as things coming up, let's see. I produce a Twitch stream with my wife. Well, she's the front and center of it. Nerd Safe for Work, where she interviews sex workers. So that's really fun. So I've been helping with that. And then another thing coming up, I will possibly getting a sneak peek into the Vox Machina TV show on Amazon Prime, and maybe doing some reviews on that, which I am very excited for. Very, very, very excited for. I can't wait. It's been years waiting for this one. And it's gonna be interesting.
All right. Well, thank you both for joining me. This is my reminder to all of you watching to pick up the Critical Role Vox Machina Origins at your friendly local comic shop using comicshoplocator.com. If you don't know where to find one, make sure to pick this up. I definitely recommend the big 1 and 2 volume just because of all the extras and how gorgeous the artwork is. And if you have a graphic novel that you'd like us to talk about, leave a comment below and your choice could be picked for a future episode. Also, this is your reminder to follow us at previewsworld.com. Follow us on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch. And you don't want to miss out on following Free Comic Book Day as well, because that's going to be coming up in 2022 and you don't want to miss out on a chance to get free comics. So thank you guys for watching. And you know what? Heroes are a dime a dozen, but comic fans are priceless. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you here next time. What graphic novel would you like to see us talk about on the panel? Let us know in the comments, and your submission could be picked for a future episode.